Welcome to Experience More Tour. My name is Marshall. We are here today to talk about Salomon and its Spring 25 offerings. There's some pretty exciting new product coming out or has already come out that we're going to be taking a look at. Update to the X Ultra, update to the an S Lab product that we're really excited to explore, and also take a quick peek at the Genesis just because it's such a hot item. We want to just take a little more in-depth look at that product as well. So that's what we're going to talk about today, and it should be a lot of fun. To talk with us, of course, we've invited in product expert Rachel. Rachel's coming in from Colorado and has worked with Salomon now for quite some time. And Rachel, you've got some good knowledge on Salomon, so welcome, and we're glad you're here.
Me too. This is always fun. This is one of my first projects when I started with Solomon was working with you guys and meeting the whole Gore team, and it's been so great. Yeah, I've been with Solomon for about a year and a half now, but I've been in the run industry for I think just about 10 years now. And I feel like I've got a lot of knowledge on a lot of different products. Solomon being run, a mix of run and outdoor has been my favorite though, trying to blend the two where all my other background was just run specific. So this, I feel like the outdoor crowd definitely brings a different vibe to the industry.
Yeah, that is fun, right? Yeah, and run has its vibe and outdoor has its vibe, and it's got to be fun for you to see both. And then there are many accounts where they cross over, of course.
Yeah.
And also as users, we cross over. I'm somebody who loves trail running as well as getting out hiking, exploring in the mountains. I have yet to dabble in road running, so I haven't touched that product yet, but I'm saving that for later, I guess.
Yeah, it's fine. The trails and hiking is way better.
Well, and Rachel, where is your home base, and what is it you love to do, in the outdoors?
Yeah, so I am based out of Colorado. I'm like right outside of Denver. Currently, we're doing a lot of hiking right now. I've got a toddler and a newborn, and so I just got a new backpack, and I'm so excited to take the kids out. So I've been getting a lot more into specifically like Solomon's outdoor products and using them myself more and more. Where originally I was just doing a lot more running and doing more of the road running and trail running when I could get out, but it's nice to take it nice and slow right now.
Nice. Well, and there's some great Salomon Kids products. My kids both run in Salomon products. In fact, we're doing a relay marathon this coming weekend all together, and so they're going to be out there running
Yay.
Salomon Kids products. So it's great to have that product out there too, and it's good stuff. The kids love it, and it works well. So
Good.
lots of cool products. Let's take a look at Salomon, and I want to kind of explore. There's so many lenses and which ways in which to view Salomon as a brand. But you have these verticals that you're designing into now, and some of these are going to be crossing over. But there's these major dynamic verticals that you all are using. Can you explain some of these to us?
Yeah. So overall, just to explain dynamic performance, dynamic is movement, all directions, performance. We want to meet you where you're at. So these three pillars are going to address every single person, whether you're just starting out, you're a beginner, you do just want to take it nice and slow, or if you're that avid person that's out there all the time, all the way up to the professionals. So we try to cover everybody. What we have here, the dynamic pace, if you're wanting to go a little bit faster, more responsive feel, dynamic support, you just like to be a little held a little bit more, and then dynamic comfort. I think this is everybody. Everyone wants to feel comfortable. This is when I'm fitting people for shoes. This is where most folks end up falling into this category and they don't necessarily know it, but if it feels good and it's working, stick with it. So those are our three pillars.
Yeah, we're not everybody's out there trying to get their fastest known time on the trail, right? We're out there to have smile and
Yeah,
have a good time, and it's nice to know that there's these pillars that you can fit into. Now there is some crossover, right? We look at something like the X
absolutely.
Ultra. It's going to have support. It's also going to have some of these new comfort features added into it to make it more appealing as well. So it's cool to kind of think about it through these lenses, and let's explore some of the product. And I want to begin just by looking at the Genesis. This is a sort of most all-around trail runner, I think, that you guys make at this time. And this shoe has been very popular. I know it's become one of your favorites, Rachel. What's special about this shoe? What do you think has made it really resonate
Ooh.
with folks?
What's not special about this shoe? I think is the bigger question. Really, when this shoe came out, I was super excited for it. My foot has always been a Solomon foot. We always joke Solomon's very French, very narrow. The Genesis was the start of things opening up. So this shoe, it's a trickle down from our S Lab Genesis.
Okay.
I shouldn't say all of our shoes. Most of our shoes are a trickle down from an athlete's shoe. So the S Lab Genesis is Courtney Dauwalter's shoe. And if you don't know Courtney Dauwalter, give her a quick Google. She's the best trail runner in the entire world. So she has her shoe, the S Lab Genesis, that is available for everybody. Although we needed something to train in, not just race in. So that's why we made the Genesis. So training, racing, if you're doing some light hiking, just general trail running and walking around on dirt and gravel, this is a great option for you. Like this one became my favorite shoe specifically because of the upper. It's made out of matrix material. I know a couple brands now use this, but this was our first time utilizing this upper material. It's super breathable. It holds so nicely. A lot of people relate it to Kevlar, and I know we have a picture of the fabric later on that you took. It's one of my favorite materials. So anytime I see that we've got matrix in the upper, I know I'm going to immediately love the way the shoe feels. But then we also have the little Star Trek piece that like the brand Salomon is written on. That's a chassis. That is Salomon's technology for our support system. So you have it on both sides of your foot to make sure you're not wobbling anywhere, but it's a little bit bigger on the lateral side to just help keep you supported and keep you in the right spot. And then our Conta grip on the bottom, if you don't know, our Conta grip is our in-house outsole material that we make. So we get to dictate all the compounds that go into it and the geometry and the shapes of all the hexagons and the pieces on the outsole. This is our all-terrain outsole. It's incredibly sticky. You can take it anywhere. I know you know Laura out in the Pacific Northwest. She uses it there. It's a lot wetter out there than it is in Colorado. Both of us have great success in this shoe, and I really don't have any complaints whatsoever.
Yeah, it's a generalist trail shoe, right? It's a shoe for the
Yeah.
masses. I do think there are folks who are probably going to take this out hiking as well because it's not like a max cushion shoe. You're going to feel
Yeah.
comfortable with a backpack on your back if you have this, but it really is its DNA comes from that S Lab, that Courtney Dauwalt shoe, right? Which is so it's really coming from that, but a more democratic fit in this shoe, like you stressed, and I think that's really cool. Um, so this came down from the S Lab series, but there's actually a new shoe out this season that came up from a standard shoe that it's been in the line now for a couple of years. And this is the Max Cushion shoe. This is the shoe really for going the distance on. And you know, this isn't a shoe for everybody, but it's so cool. I really wanted to make sure we talked about it this season. So, can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about this rig?
Yes. So this shoe, yeah, like just like you said, we kind of went the opposite direction. The Ultra Glide has been on the market for a while. I think we're on the third iteration, so 3 years now. The S Lab version of this shoe, and again, just to cover, like this slide covers what S Lab is. This is our pinnacle product. It's made for the athletes in mind specifically. However, when we were looking at the S Lab Ultra Glide, we were looking at the shoe for everyone, the ultra shoe for everyone. So the marketing behind this shoe is very bold. And I'll say personally, the shoe holds up, but the marketing is you will feel just as good at mile 1 as you will at mile 100.
Mhm.
So it's pretty big talk. The biggest piece is going to be the relief spheres. I know it's a mouthful and it's a little tongue twister to say, but the relief spheres on the bottom, you can see in the outsole on these photos, it's dimpled. So there's just like little indents in there.
Yeah, I can see
I've had
that.
lots of people guess on what they think it is. They all think we're trying to cut weight. We're trying to distribute your pain and your pressure. While you're running an ultra, your foot's going to hit the ground a ton. Your joints are going to hurt. Your metatarsals are going to be in pain. We want to be able to move that around and just make it to where you're not hurting as much. So, through years of testing and looking at various athletes, we were able to pinpoint the common areas that people were having the most pain. That's why you'll see some of these are small, some of them are big. We're trying, if you look at like the anatomy of your foot, these match up where you have a lot of joints hitting the ground. So that way you're covered with the Conta grip on the bottom, but you also have those relief spheres to help dissipate the pain that you're going to have.
Yeah, it's an interesting concept, right? Just in places where we get a lot of wear, let's you're still gonna, you know, as the sole sort of flattens out as you hit the ground, you're still gonna get some pressure on those, but it's gonna alleviate, right? You're not gonna be
Yeah.
focusing the pressure in those zones. So distribute it across the entire foot, and it's a clever way of doing that. Cushioning will help with that, and we're gonna go into the cushioning of the shoe, but this gives an additional little call out on that. How does that
Yeah.
affect? I see that there's less like tread on the bottom of this, right? Because there's less contacting the ground. what have you done to counter the lack of lugs that you see on the bottom of this?
Yeah, so we were really particular in the compound that we were making with it's still our Contigrip, but we were making it very light and very durable. And the lugs are strategically placed to cover everywhere you're going to be hitting the ground. So you can see specifically like in the forefoot, on the outside, rounding it, and then in the back of the heel. Those are really major contact points for folks. So we made sure that you're covered there. But when you look at I always look at like right where your heel bone would be in the back of this shoe
Yeah.
that typically doesn't hit the ground first. So being able to have a release sphere there is really helpful, but then you're covered through the transition period with the rest of the lugs. I understand for those folks that are like, I don't heel strike, I'm more on the front. We all heel strike at some point on the trails, you gotta be covered. But for those folks that are more the midfoot and up front, you're still covered. Like you guys can see where those lugs are placed. Again, just visualize in your mind how your foot's going to hit the ground. A lug is going to be hitting the ground first. So you're covered everywhere.
Yeah, a lot of R&D went into like where
Yeah.
exactly these lugs and these release spheres are going to go in the bottom of the shoe. Now, this is coupled with an innovative midsole technology. So, can you run through a little bit what's happening underfoot in addition to the relief spheres?
Yes. So this shoe, we were really slow with the release because we put a ton of research into this. The biggest thing I think people are going to notice is it's not plated, and that's been very controversial on the trail racing side. Through our studies, we found that it was just better if you had foam on the trails rather than a carbon plate. So we have our Energy Foam Plus is the top layer. It's extremely bouncy, really responsive, but that it lasts a really long time, but it does break down over time. And especially covering that ultra distance, you needed something a little bit more. So we have our Energy Foam on the bottom, and that it's a little bit denser, still responsive, but it has a little less pushback than what the Energy Foam Plus does.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like a Goldilocks fit. You get the best of both. Overall, it feels very marshmallowy, plushy, but I like more of a minimalist shoe, and I still felt very connected to the ground in this shoe. It's one I do feel like it's hard to verbalize just how perfect it feels. You gotta put it on. The last we made it on is it's a little bit wider for what Solomon does, but it's not a wide fitting shoe whatsoever. But you just have a little bit more room up front. We are expecting people to be in this a long time. Like I said, that ultra distance. And that upper material is meant to stretch over time, not like stretch out. It's meant to just give you some breathing room, if that makes sense, Marshall.
Yeah, it's more like that sock-like fit. So the
Yeah.
sock is going to grow with your foot, as is this upper, but it's still going to hold you, but not with too much pressure, right? And
Yeah.
I do like that type of fit in a running shoe. I've experienced that, and it is nice, especially in something like this type of shoe. So that'll be really fun to see and try. I haven't tried this yet, but I'm very curious about this S-Lab Ultra Glide. It seems like a cool new addition to the line. So very fun to
Yeah.
explore. Well, switching gears from running to hiking, I'll call it ultra hiking maybe, because we're going to talk about the X Ultra 5, which is a long anticipated update to your iconic X Ultra hiking series. What is the X Ultra hiking series? Who's that for, is maybe compared to some of the other shoes in your line?
Yes. This shoe is for everyone who's out on a hike. If you are doing a smaller day hike, if you're just out there on your trails, I see people in my neighborhood will take this for like their morning dog walk. This is just an overall really great shoe. I jokingly call it the Tacoma of boots. It can handle a lot. A lot of people don't take it out like it deserves to be taken out. So this shoe, I'll say I'm recently getting into hiking and this has been one of my favorite shoes. It does come in both a high and a low. The high, I should say a mid, not a high, but the mid to me, for me personally, it hits at a really good height. I enjoy it. I know some people have said they didn't love where it hit in the four, but what we did with this shoe, the X Ultra, it's a top five seller for Salomon. We didn't want to mess this shoe up at all. It's why we were slow with updating this shoe. We wanted to take some time, let the four settle. People loved the four, so we don't want to mess it up. So with going into the five, yes, it's a number change and it is an update, but overall it's a refinement. So the bones of the shoe are the exact same. But what we did is in the collar, like the tongue and around the heel, we added a little bit of cushion. We wanted to just give you a more luxurious feel in the shoe. Then the upper, we threw in some matrix upper. So you have a couple pieces of it in there. All the matrix does in this shoe is it makes it more breathable and it makes it 33% more abrasion resistant. And I know like the 33% doesn't necessarily matter, but overall more abrasion resistant, and we kept it the same price. So if I was someone coming in and I'm like, I want my same X Ultra, I want the 4 really, but you don't have the 4 anymore, so moving in the 5, it's the same shoe, but a little bit cushier through the tongue, and you made it more abrasion resistant. I love that.
Yeah.
So overall, like I said, a refinement, not I personally I feel like not a true update.
That's good to kind of know and understand, right? And you all did send me a pair of these back in February, and I've been able to take them out and walk around a bit. And the thing I really did notice is right away the cushiness of that that zone around the ankle. I had not yet experienced a shoe that felt so couch-like, like comfy couch-like around the collar of this shoe, right? That's not underfoot, right? Underfoot felt stable, but it just felt plush
Yeah.
and like luxury around my ankle. And so no ankle wear spots, nothing I had to break in. It was just very instant out of the box comfort. And often in mids, I don't lace the top very tight because I want to have room and breathability and not breathability, but movement. I
Yeah.
could lace this actually up pretty tight because of the cushioning, and it was nice. It was nice. And honestly, when I was out, most of the hiking I've done to this is in snow trails like this, and it was nice to have a little coverage at the mid for the snow to keep the snow from going in. So
Nice.
those are my legs out enjoying these shoes. And I noticed the fit was, yeah, it was right on the cusp of what was comfortable for my foot as far as width goes. But I understand these also do come in wides. And
They
so
do
I try
come
that
in
a
a
little bit.
wide. So I know
Yeah.
some people are so happy when we make something in a wide. These do come in a wide.
Yeah, and that's great to have that fit option in these, right? Where if folks do want a slightly more generous fit, non-French like fit, we can go into the wide in this shoe, and that's pretty cool that you've been able to manufacture that. So this is the X Ultra 5, and also I just want to say because I am a nerd, I'd like to take a look at some of the fabrics. So what you see in the major part of this photo is the matrix under my fabric microscope that I have here. And I just was really curious to see what type of fabric this matrix is, right? And what I noticed by looking at it is that it is well, first of all, it's a weave, right? Not a knit. You can see a knit. I put a picture of a knit in the inset here just to compare the two. A weave is always going to be more durable than a knit. The question is, like, when you have a weave, is it gonna form around the foot well? And so the way you can engineer in a weave to flex and move is you can do kind of a really nice even weave. And you can notice that these yarns are laid parallel. There's not a lot of twisting in the yarns. We call that a flat yarn. And flat yarns are going to move a little bit better, right? There's less friction in that. And so this weave can move as you flex it a little bit. It is also, flat yarns are going to be more abrasion resistant. Now, why don't we use flat yarns everywhere? Well, flat yarns are going to have a really nice sheen to them. And a lot of folks in Gore-Tex garments, they don't want a sheen, right? So then we do what's called a false twist in there to remove that sheen. But this is definitely going to be more durable. And in a shoe like the X Ultra 5, this is going to up the durability. There isn't that much of this, so even if it does have a little sheen to it, actually looks kind of cool, honestly, in this shoe. So that is just an interesting analysis I did of that matrix from my perspective of somebody who likes to look at different materials. So that's the X
I
Ultra
love it.
5 and dynamic support. So where's the support coming from in the shoe?
Yes. So I know someone said they loved the Star Trek piece reference. On this one, it's the little Star Trek piece is that little, I think it's like orangey yellow, but it's our advanced chassis. So it is on the bottom of the shoe, but it also takes into account the upper part of the shoe. So it kind of looks like a strap coming across that lateral side. I know it's hard to see in this picture, but it's not on the medial side. It kind of acts like a seatbelt holding you in laterally. We don't want you to roll out whatsoever. So we're trying to just strap your foot in, make sure you're supported from that outside, but not over supporting you. We know that's like a very fine line, especially in the hiking industry. So making sure you're covered, but not over covering you for folks that still want a little bit of movement and flexibility and they don't want to feel like they're suffocating in the shoe.
Yeah, and so you can see that piece come up through there and through the instep of the shoe. there's also another subtle little dynamic call out, right? And if we look at the bottoms of these shoes, and I think we have an image of it,
Yeah.
can you talk about that little different piece of compound there?
Yep. So again, you'll notice it's on the lateral side. We don't want you to feel like you're going to edge off anywhere. So we just made it's a little bit firmer. It's just like, and when I mean a little bit firmer, I mean like a touch. So if this is a shoe that you have in store, I'd say take it out of the box and just push your fingers on the Conta grip just so you can feel it. That's going to be a little bit firmer. It's similar to how we've done like our Alpine shoes, where we've segmented the Conta grip so that way you have something that's just a little bit different where you need it. So
Mhm.
again, trying to give you support on the wet, on the muddy areas. We're just covering you on that lateral side.
And then I love these comparison photos of the outsoles, right? You all design your own outsoles, and so it's very intentional. Tell me a little bit about the lug depth, if you seem to know, if you know it, on something like the X Ultra 5, and how that maybe compares with the Genesis.
Ooh, so the lug depth, I'll be honest, I don't know off the top of my head. I'm
Fair
pretty
enough.
confident the X Ultra 5 is a 4 millimeter.
Yeah,
It's the other two I'm not super confident on. I do know the S Lab Ultra Glide is going to be the shortest of the three, just
yeah.
because we're trying to keep weight off. But all of these shoes are made with our all-terrain Conta grip, so you can see though they look so different. It's a nice thing for Solomon. We get to play around with the geometry and our own pieces.
Yeah.
So you can see with the Genesis, you're super covered everywhere. We wanted to make sure this was the shoe for absolutely everybody. Similar to the X Ultra 5, you can see like just a lot of lugs. The S Lab Ultra Glide, because you have the release spheres, you just have a little bit less, but that shoe was designed for more racing, while the other two are designed for to be in all day and you're going a little bit slower.
Hmm. Yeah, and you can kind of see that real intentionality with the different lugs and the different zones there. Now, I understand that you got to go to France and
Yeah.
check out Solomon and do a little visit there. Um, and this was your first time to be able to visit the headquarters, is that right?
Yes, it was my first time. I was most excited. I mean, I've been to France before just because when I was little, grew up military, so we got to go around. But to see like where Solomon was from and Solomon's headquarters was amazing. We were able to go to Chamonix and see like the Peak, Bonatti Peak. And that's, if you guys know our jackets, that's one of our top selling jackets that we'll always keep in the line.
Hmm.
And we got to take like a tour through the labs, and a lot of it was like winter sports and how we made our skis and snowboards. So unfortunately for me, it went right over my head and I couldn't fully take in how awesome it was.
Yeah.
But then we got to look at the run lab, and that I had so many questions. I think the most fun thing I learned was, you know how we have like wine sommeliers, they have shoe sommeliers. And
Okay.
they bring it like Solomon, we have some in-house. They said we had like 3 or 5 in-house, but this is also like a global thing. So I was like, how do you become this? How is this a job? And they bring in like third-party shoe sommeliers to test the shoes and see like if we're really looking for like a Brooks Glycerin kind of feel, but we want to take the Solomon twist to it. We have someone run in a Brooks Glycerin and then they run like in our tech, and we see where we hit the mark and where we miss the mark, trying to make it very similar to that shoe. But also, if we're like, we want to make it more plush, we want to make it a little like less plush. However, like this is, I feel like just an example, we have these sommeliers come in and
Yeah.
help us test these shoes. And we have like this massive treadmill that people run in. We have a trail situation so we can get different contact points too. I was just blown away by the lab.
Yeah, and that's
And
somebody who's been trained to really have a refined,
yeah,
it would be a nose, but here it's the taste or feel for the subtle tweaks in a shoe, right? And can tell you, and be able to describe that and be able to give that feedback. It's interesting. I haven't thought about that. I mean, I think in the outdoor industry,
yeah,
as folks, we're tasked with knowing a lot about a lot of different shoes, and we always try them on and try it out, right? So we're junior cadet shoe sommeliers, but it's interesting to think
yeah,
that there's people out there and professionally, this is what they do. That's a pretty cool step forward in that. I like that idea. Well, we're all junior
yeah.
cadet shoe sommeliers here, and so we have lots of questions and always trying to refine that knowledge. I have another question from the audience for the ultralight through hiker, right? So the through hiker is a different type of set of needs, right? They need durability, they need comfort, Their feet are going to swell through the course of the day, be less swollen in the morning. Um, and they want a trail runner. What would you put them in from the Salomon line?
I would put you in the Genesis. I will say the through hikers are honestly through hikers come into a store for a fit, they're the hardest ones to fit because I feel like they're what you're looking for is very unique. Some people do want more like the X Ultra. It is incredibly lightweight, but the shoe, it can handle weight, but it just depends on how much weight you're carrying. The Genesis will hold up for it if you're wanting to go real fast. Again, it really depends on that extra weight that you're adding on. But if you're looking for a trail runner, I'd say try the Genesis, see how you feel with it.
Okay. Yeah, the Genesis or the X Ultra would be an interesting option. But yeah, it is a
Yeah.
it's hard. You have to, often when we try on a pair of shoes in the store or maybe even go for a hike, I've heard from other people, give it 20 miles to really give it a see if
Yeah.
you like it on your foot. And that'll be, and in a hike, I'm not really going to hike more than 20 miles in a day. So I can kind of get a feel, but suddenly if I'm through hiking, I gotta extrapolate that forward
Yeah.
months and months and months, and how are my feet going to feel? That's a tough extrapolation to make until you
Yeah.
get the time in the shoe. So it is always hard, and I know that the folks on this call are tasked with fitting through hikers and trying to make those best recommendations. So
Yeah.
maybe trying those two shoes, but certainly getting out and giving them at least 20 miles before you hit the PCT
Yeah.
might be a good idea. So thank you so much for giving us a tour of what's new for Spring 25. It's exciting to see this. I can't wait to see what's coming out in the fall. I'm sure you have some pretty cool
Oh
stuff
my
coming.
gosh.
And I know that you've been taking a look at Spring 26 as well. So I can't wait to hear what some of these cool new styles are coming down the line in road, in trail, in gravel, right? And also in hike and in mountaineering. There's so many cool boots out there.
I'm
So
so excited. I would say the biggest thing for spring 26 is the Quest is getting an update. We haven't updated that shoe since 2021 when it first came out. So that I think is the most anticipated one.
Well, Rachel, thank you for spending time
Thank
with us
you.
this evening. Enjoy the rest of your spring and any adventures you have planned. I'm sure just getting back from France, you're excited to spend some time with your family, reconnect. But sometimes that means time out on the trail. So enjoy that.
Yes.
And thank you.
Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure.